Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in such large numbers. And bear with me while I do one thing that I haven't done for very many times. I normally speak off the cuff. I'm actually going to read you a speech written last night. I can't remember. So I'd like to help you answer for yourself the question, why vote for me? What can I do for you? And what kind of leader would I be? I hope that this speech will help you clarify that, and I hope that I will be able to show you that I understand the issues we all face and how to tackle them. I have divided this topic into two parts. Part 1, issues, Part 2, strategy. And just so you know, I have a laptop back there, non-internet based, on which I give sound bites on various policy issues coming from my personal perspective. And as one of the founders of the Green Party, you will understand that that personal perspective has very much informed what is Green Party policy. Firstly, I'd like to speak to those issues that are relevant to all residents of our beautiful province, and issues like, for example, preventing our biosphere from being destroyed by global warming or radioactive contamination, preventing the loss of our biodiversity through clear cuts and old-growth logging, and diminishing local food supplies by paving the agricultural land reserve or destroying organic farms, undermining our energy security by damming rivers via IPPs and secret trade agreements, and our communities being disenfranchised via the likes of Bill 30. So, secondly, I would like to focus on those issues that are more meaningful to British Columbians of the Green persuasion at this AGM via our strategy. As Greens, we face both strategic and real-life challenges and opportunities. Strategically, the problem of being ignored is giving way to being attacked. This week, journalist Mark Hume published a piece in the Globe and Mail attempting to undermine our support base by accusing us of ruining the valiant green efforts of the new NDP. What people like Mr. Hume don't realize is that the Green Party does not change its color with every new leader who comes along, no matter whom he or she schmoozes with, interim or otherwise. Our philosophy and principles are based on finding long-term integrated solutions to globally interrelated social, ecological, and structural problems. We are a grassroots organization that believes in participatory democracy, and our membership makes the rules and policies, not the leader. The leader is the spokesperson. The leader must be the leader, not the ruler. We are... Sorry, where was I? Excuse me. That's the problem with reading, you know, especially when you're a bit short-sighted. Okay.
I hear the vision.
Yes. So we're a grassroots organization that believes in participatory democracy and in which the membership makes the rules and policies. And these two facts give us incredible strength and unavoidable relevance and consistency in messaging and purpose. The solution to both problems is maintaining our relevance and increasing our electability, and that is via maintaining our credibility. How do we maintain or improve our credibility? And my answer is with a leader who inspires confidence and hope in green solutions. To my mind, that is someone whose track record leaves no doubt about personal motivation, integrity, and dedication to the cause, and someone with the scientific credentials and ability to see through and point out the opposition's greenwashing endeavors on both sides of the left-green divide. A green-thinking leader must also be capable of assessing every situation by weighing and filtering those ecological, social, and fiscal aspects that we need to consider before coming to a conclusion and deciding on a solution. For example, in a Green Olympics context, imagine the Green Party and its leadership team as a Cerberus watching out for the triple bottom line. Fortunately for BC, we have several leadership candidates here today who have done their personal best to show the world that they mean it. We have people whose commitment straddles, in my case, up to 3 decades and include the following successes, again in my case: protecting Aboriginal fishing communities and saving salmon-bearing streams from dams by researching and advocating for appropriately sited windmills in Quebec, preventing the spraying of our forests with pesticides by advocating for biological controls, again in Quebec, helping to save our marine environment by protecting Guayanas from oil exploration, and also helping to establish the South Moresby Park Reserve, preventing clear-cutting the ancient forests of Clayoquot Sound and the Boise Valley via education and research by initiative started with my European Forestry Awareness Campaign, which predated the Greenpeace and Western Canada Wilderness Committee's campaigns, helping to rewrite CEPA via multilateral negotiations and legal critiques. And the league goes on, and if you want to check out what that is, please go to my website, greenthinker.ca. No one can spell my name. That is one of my main shortcomings. In accomplishing the above feats, I have garnered many years of media experience, made films, lobbied in 4 languages, and worked hard to accumulate the scientific credentials that would give our green movement the needed credibility and authority. Now to internal matters. We need to pay more attention to the 3 M's, money, message, members. We've touched on the message aspect and the messaging aspect in what I've said already. So what about money and members? I believe it's really important as a grassroots organization to be beholden to the membership and no one really else when it comes to fundraising. My preferred method is going after modest evergreen donations wherever and whenever possible. And I've shown that I can do this in this leadership race. Remember, if you give $5 a month, it's the equivalent of the cost of 1 membership at the end of the year. And if you give a mere 10, it'll cost you only $35 at tax time. This will provide us with a steady income that will fix some of the problems we've experienced in the past and that became particularly poignant in this leadership race. Firstly, I believe we can overcome these problems by employing creative, highly motivated, full-time staff who have already proven their dedication to our common cause. This is not putting down the people who've been hired now, it's to show we need more people like you who can stay with us and not go to Australia. Secondly, having reasonable expectations of our employees and volunteers to prevent burnout and therefore the discontinuity and disruption of services to members or elected officials like council members that come about when people quit because they're overburdened. Thirdly, we need a leader in a mobile office who can go out into the country and let the people interact with us on a much more long-term and regular basis. Thirdly, we need to foster a culture of inclusiveness and working together better by meaningfully involving and improving communications among and between our volunteers, voluntary council members, staff, and grassroots members. Fourthly, we need to build an exponentially growing street canvas in every community, working to increase our membership, liaising with existing community leaders, and encouraging people to vote for STV. After the referendum results in Eastern Canada and Central Canada this year, it became clear to me that the 2009 referendum on electoral reform in BC is our last chance to achieve a form of proportional representation. In Canada, proportional representation in Canada, and that we have to do this via STV. Unfortunately, MMP is probably gone. It's up to us, the electorate in BC and grassroots Greens in particular, to make that happen. We know we can't wait for anyone else to do it for us, not the media, not the NDP, nor the Liberals. Voting for STV is the only choice we have if we want to reinvigorate our democracy. So if you want a leader who gets along with people, who can speak with anyone about global warming believably, with a history of dedication to democratizing our democratic systems, and who is therefore motivated to push for STV because it's our last opportunity for change and be understood, vote for me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher, and hello to everyone. Before I start, I just would like to say what a pleasure and an honor it's been to be part of this leadership race. There's been a number of debates that I've been a part of with the other leadership candidates, and I must say the field of candidates that we've got are really second to none and really speak highly to this party and to its future, and I just feel like it's been a real honor to be a part of it. Take a second to say thank you to everybody for this process. So I'd like to start by saying, why are we here? It might be that you just really enjoy taking really long drives through Esquimalt, trying to find your way to Royal Roads, or getting lost in the woods like I did on the way here. Yes. I think it's because we're all here to change the world. I think this is a party that understands the real severity of the seriousness of the problems that we're facing, and has a vision for what we can be doing about these problems. This is a party of big ideas, but with that comes really big responsibilities. We understand that, that real change is necessary. We're not just talking about Kyoto, we're talking about a reduction of greenhouse gases by 60 or 80% sometime in the really, really near future. So, I mean, the baby steps that are being taken by the other political parties and the talk about the change that's necessary really doesn't even come close to the scale and the scope of the change that's necessary. And this is a party that gets that. So, with our big ideas comes a really big responsibility. We have to tell the truth to the people of British Columbia about the kind of change that's necessary. But the good news is that with these big changes comes real opportunity. We have the opportunity to be a real leader in the world, not just in Canada, but in the entire world. We're here on the gateway to the Pacific. We're here right next to the biggest country in the world in terms of this economic giant that is the United States. And I think British Columbia has this amazing opportunity to be a natural laboratory for renewable energy technology, for the solutions that are necessary, and for building the kind of world that we would really like to see. So the question is, how do we take this awareness that we have now, this new understanding of the challenges we face, this new sort of sense of a concern in the world about climate change and about environmental issues, how do we take that awareness and turn it into action? Or another way to put this is, how is the Green Party going to win seats in the next election? I believe the way that we're going to do that is by building community. Our strength is our membership, our strength is the people that support us. Having just traveled around this province, I can tell you that the members of the Green Party of British Columbia are some of the most amazing people in this province. They're innovative, they're brilliant, they're inspiring, they're really living their values, and I'm really proud to be a part of this group of people. So, I think we need to be a party that's about the politics of empowerment. And fundamentally what that means is seeing ourselves in a slightly different way. I think we have to see this party as a mechanism for social change. We're not just a group of people that has the solutions that's going to impart that knowledge onto the citizens of British Columbia. We need to be a party that is used as a mechanism by the people of this province to actually create the change that's necessary. So I think fundamentally at our core, we need to see ourselves as a party a little bit differently. Now, unfortunately, right now in our province, the status quo has been the so-called left and right fighting over what I would say is the spoils of environmental collapse. It's kind of like two sides of a bargaining table fighting for maintenance of the status quo. And the reality is that we really need to make changes that are quite large. And if we don't go beyond this sort of left-right, flip-flopping from one side of an ideological divide to the other, and really get to just sort of taking good ideas no matter where they come from and putting them into action, we're not going to get to the solutions that are necessary. We're not going to get to the change that's necessary, and we're not going to be the force that we need to be in this planet. So what does the politics of empowerment really mean? It means empowering communities. It means listening to what the people want, and it means taking action in ways that don't negatively impact communities. So for example, if you look at something like Bill 30, which is our current provincial government's sort of green energy plan, this plan has been implemented in such a way that it actually disempowers people. It takes control out of the hands of local communities. It takes the power away from people. And if you look in Europe and other places where these run-of-the-river power projects have actually worked, it's really about consultation with community. That's what has made the difference. That's what has made these projects work for communities and has actually generated revenue that went back into the community. So I think there's really a convenient truth. And the convenient truth is that a new economy, a green economy, is an economy that will create sustainable wealth, that will create jobs for the future, and will actually give us the ability to be the leaders, to be ahead of the curve, to be ahead of this sort of new industry that's necessary. So, we are at this critical turning point right now, where the citizens of British Columbia can decide, do we want to be part of the solution, or do we want to just continue to be the breadbasket and the source of resources for the rest of the world? Or do we want to be a value-added economy? Do we want to be a place that takes what we've got, this great wealth, this abundance, and actually does something of value with it? Something that we can be proud of, something that will provide jobs for ourselves, and will make sure that those jobs are still there in the future. As a leader of the Green Party, I will passionately use innovative approaches to effectively realize our party's potential. This is a party that could be doing so much, but it really is going to take somebody to inspire our base, to bring out the youth that are our natural supporters, and to really get this party going, to get this party, from where it is now to the place where it really could be, where it can be. And we have a lot to be thankful for. We've had some really, really amazing people who've built this party to what it is. But I think we can go so much further. So I think we need to build on that foundation that people like Adrian Carr and the other people that were involved in building this party to what it is. And we can take that foundation and we can build upon it. So as leader of this party, I will tell you I'll be at the legislature on a regular basis every time anything of consequence is happening there, just like Elizabeth May is doing in Ottawa right now. And to her credit, she's getting more attention to this party than we've ever had. And I will be there and I will be commenting, I will be in the hallways, I'll be in the stairwells, I will be absolutely everywhere in that building, commenting on what's going on until we have seats in that legislature, and until we have our own offices, until we have a real presence in the legislature. We can be effective with or without those seats, but it is our goal to get there, and I think the way to do it is to be a credible voice and to be there on a regular basis. So that's job one. But beyond that, I think we need to travel around this province and develop a community plan. We need to actually talk to the people of British Columbia and say, what does ecosystem-based management look like? What do you want the economy of this province to look like? What sort of projects would you like to see in your neck of the woods? Because this is what's not happening right now, right? Like, I think the empowerment that I'm talking about, it's something that people viscerally feel. I think that probably you and I share this with most people in British Columbia, is this feeling of disconnection from their government. You feel like there's all these solutions, there's all these great ideas that are being talked about, but yet somehow there's a disconnect between yourself and your government. And I think we can be a party, and I think that's what we need to continue to do, is be a party that points out the failures of our government, points out the failures of the current system, and really highlights what can be done. This is work I've been coming towards for many, many years, and I think there's a lot of issues that really deserve a voice. As I traveled around this province, I can tell you I saw one bad idea after another, after another, after another, whether it was coal bed methane, or the taking of ALR land out of the ALR, or whether it was offshore oil, or just the problems in terms of bad projects is so numerous that I don't even know where to start telling you about. But what I can tell you is that there's some great solutions, and there's some great people in this province, and they're just looking for an opportunity and for a voice and for a place where they can feel at home. We need to reach out to the arts community to help us communicate our ideas. We need to use the internet better to communicate with our members and create social networking environments that will give us the opportunity to make the changes that we need. So I just want to leave you with this one thing. I think I am the candidate who will appeal to people's hope and will inspire people into action. And so I'm asking you for your support, because I think together anything is really possible. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. Thank you all for coming out this afternoon. During the course of this campaign, we have tried to build capacity for our party around the province by reaching out to green expertise and helping implement change now. I would like to start off by sharing with you some stories for our leadership campaign trail. Many of these stories come from interactions with you, the members, and relate to green policy that we have promoted in our 17 policy press releases. First off, one of our talented team members who you heard from earlier, Brian Macon, set up an interview with Dr. Mark Jackard. Dr. Jackard is Canada's preeminent academic expert in the field of carbon taxes and resource management. It was fascinating to hear how a simple carbon tax on cars and energy could drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and help reduce climate change now. We heard about there's a wealthy oil-producing nation that you all know called Norway that has a similar population to BC of 4 million, and they have had a carbon tax for 15 years. So why cannot we implement one now? Our Dr. Jackard carbon tax YouTube video, which I was fortunate enough to moderate, had over 100 views within 3 days, and we complemented it shortly afterwards with a carbon tax press release. And I think you're going to like this story. It was fascinating to see the media in Kamloops put Steve Harper, that's right, you call him Steve because he doesn't like that. They put his old employer on the spot, Canadian Taxpayer Federation, and they said Green Party candidate Damien Kettlewell was in town 2 weeks ago and he just issued a press release on carbon tax. So their communication director responded with absolute ignorance on the subject matter and just wrote it right off, when definitely it is the best market mechanism we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The result of this is that your Green Party representative is educating influential groups about progressive new policy matters. Another example of a Green Party representative influencing public opinion is that we were up in Kelowna for a well-organized debate by Angela Reid and the Kelowna Greens. And part of our campaign strategy was to issue press releases at every one of our 8 campaign stops, and in between as well. So in Kelowna, based on conversations with a new member, one of the 100 members we've signed up, this one was at the Richmond Night Market, we decided to launch and promote the innovative policy called Pay-As-You-Drive car insurance. So Pay-As-You-Drive car insurance is an innovative policy that one of your own here in Victoria, Todd Littman, has been promoting through his organization, the Victoria Transportation Policy Institute. pay-as-you-drive car insurance is a simple concept that provides monetary incentive to those people who drive less and pollute less. So here we are after our Kelowna debate, and we're leaving out of town with JM, our financial agent, and with Sylvain, one of our leadership colleagues, and my phone is ringing off the hook. The media is calling from Vancouver, they're calling from Kelowna. Fascinatingly, on the radio we hear the Kelowna radio host calls our Green Party policy innovative. I was like, well, that was very, very generous for the media to step out on this policy matter. As we're pulling back into Vancouver, it brought joy in my heart to see that CKWX had made it their top news story of the day. So every 15 minutes you had Green Party of BC and leadership candidate Damien Kettlewell is promoting this pay-as-you-drive car insurance. So ICBC was getting a lot of heat, so they had to respond right away, and they did respond. And oh, we have it already, and oh no, the UK, they don't know what they're doing. You can buy it in the UK right now, and it definitely helps reduce our pollution. So it turned into the top news story of the day, and what really was a cherry on top for us is they put it on their online poll, and our policy, the policy of our members that we all do support, won overwhelmingly 2-1 on their online poll. So why am I telling you these stories? Because we have influenced public opinion with our carbon tax and our pay-as-you-drive car releases. And we, and I, will do more as your leader, hopefully as the next Green Party of BC leader. The lessons that can be learned from this are that part of a job of a leader is to reach out to people of around this province who have been making BC green and putting their initiatives in the public debate and applying pressure so they can become a reality. So I asked myself, I'm a reflective individual, I did my leadership MBA at this school right here a couple of years ago, and reflection is a key part of leadership. So you might be asking yourself, well, why is it this one campaign generated 4 or 5-fold more media attention than any other one of the leadership debates or any other leadership candidates, with all due respect? Those are the facts. Well, in Prince George, let me share with you how we did it. In Prince George, we all arrived. It was great. It was our first candidate. It was our first all-leadership debate. And one of our local organizers, Laura Beckert, picked me up, and we proceeded to visit all the media outlets around town with Laura and her 2 children in tow. It was fantastic. Now, let me share with you that Laura is symbolic of the quality of the green organizers around this province. She's passionate, she's thankless, she's calculated, and she did a phenomenal job organizing this first of 5 debates, which was in Prince George. Truth be told, it is the Laura Beckett's of our party that will determine the success of the Green Party of BC. So Laura and I were dropping in on these media outlets and ended up on the 5 o'clock news 4 hours later talking about the Green Party of BC, talking about the 5 leadership contestants, and talking about the debate that night. As well, I spent 45 minutes talking with award-winning print journalist Gordon Hoekstra from the Prince George Citizen, and helped contribute to a favorable news story the next day in the town's #1 paper. So really, why does this story matter to you? Well, we got press publicizing your policies and this leadership debate because we sought out the interview, because we were impressed, and because they were impressed with how we packaged our message. Both, this absolute words right from their mouth, both the 5 o'clock news anchor and Gordon, the award-winning journalist, commented that, Damien, we never give feature representation to Green Party candidates when they're in town on one day's notice, because the professional presentation and the professional policy presentation hasn't been there. You go to their website, it isn't there. Adrian comes to town, we give Adrian lots of attention, but anybody else, I have never done it before. So that was good to hear. Now, if we didn't take the initiative, we wouldn't have got the interview and the message would not have gone out. And it is all about the message and policy. So thanks to our tenacity and professionalism of our campaign and of our campaign team, we were able to make a real impression with the voters of Prince George. Now, I'm a firm believer that work experience really defines success going forward, and this is a big job and it requires a team effort. I have been able to accomplish so much in this short campaign because we've attracted a dynamic team that has been able to bring skills and professionalism to our campaign. One of my greatest strengths is working towards a common goal, and I have worked for many years leading a sales team of 13, and now I run my own small business that employs 25. I have had to communicate in every way imaginable as a salesperson, and it's amazing the opportunities that I've been able to generate for your party by using the same skill. And I can tell you that we need to get the message out, and we need to do things like call our members. I personally made over 600 phone calls to our members. And now briefly, we ran in 2005. Our potential external liaison told you that we were in 2005 in Vancouver Point Grey. We had some funds. We did a spoof video. We got extensive media coverage. Outside of Adrian, we had the most media coverage of any candidate in the province. And really, we took a strong stance on things like STV. Our party did not take a strong stance on STV, and basically we've seen now in print and PEI and in Ontario that STV is going to be the way to go, and the mixed member proportional representation, unfortunately, is not going to work right now. We had 58% of British Columbians support STV. STV is a better option on the table, and STV will be key to the long-term success of our party. Considering all the unique media stories, 26 media stories we've had in this campaign, and the serious work experience, you can imagine that we've attracted some serious support. 2 elected councillors, one from Coquitlam, one from Whistler, one of Ken's colleagues, esteemed Green Elder and former Greenpeace co-founder Rex Weiler, and everyone's favorite Green great-grandmother, Betty Croswick. So what will we do if you lend us your vote today? Well, number one, we will pressure for a revenue-neutral carbon tax like there has never been any pressure applied before in this province. It is the best way to lower our greenhouse gas emissions now. We will pressure for solutions that we face now with our homelessness crisis, and we should not have this crisis in our economically rich province. And number 3, we will campaign for electoral reform now. We can elect MLAs under the current electoral system, but STV is more democratic, and that's why we support it. As well, we do support electoral reform and the removal of business and union donations from any sort of political campaign provincially. And yes, in our last press release, we helped get us Greens on the cover of the Vancouver Sun as we put out a press release the day before on electoral finance reform. I wanted to thank some key members of our campaign. First and foremost, my lovely wife and supportive wife, Charlene. I wanted to thank Devin, our campaign manager, JM, our financial agent, Charlie, chief strategist, and my family for being here, my brother and sister, and Brian and Dan. I look forward to working with you on council, hopefully. And members of the Green Party, my vision for this party is change now. We walked the talk, we drove here in our greenhouse gas neutral, waste vegetable oil vehicle, and we have attracted unprecedented exposure to our party. A vote for Damien Kettlewell, and you'll be voting for an individual and a team that will elect Green MLAs in 2009 and help ensure that Green MLAs are a fixture for generations to come. Thank you very much.
First thing I notice is that there's no way to put a glass of water. I'd like to start by saying what an honor it is to be running for the leadership of the Green Party of BC. First, let me look at my watch and see how long I've got. For somebody like me who really believes in protection of the environment is where it came from for me, and I've been working on issues in that area for a long time. And it's a real, I feel proud to be standing in front of this group of people which contains people who have worked for so long and so hard on so many issues. So I really want to start by thanking all of you for all that you've done on all the issues that we've all worked on for such a long time. My own record is almost perfect. I don't think I've ever worked on an issue that in which I felt like I'd won or we won. But I know others have had more success, and I really salute, because I've seen people devote so much of their lives to these so important issues. To me, the fundamental underlying problems in Canada and in BC are that we don't have democracy and we don't have a free press. And a couple of minutes ago, I was standing outside and then somebody said, mention the healthcare issue. So I'm going to start off with that. I'd completely forgotten it in this speech, so I'm glad that he said that I should say something about it. I believe, as well as a lot of other people I know believe, that our healthcare system isn't being privatized because it doesn't work. it has been deliberately made not to work so that it can be privatized. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the nursing union, people in groups that oppose the privatization of our healthcare, and they've said the same thing. And what we see is the power, the corporate power behind this, to be able to take this issue on of actually wrecking what used to be one of the world's great healthcare systems in many respects. And imagine the power they have to be able to do it. And I've looked into it. I'm writing a book and the issue of healthcare is somehow involved in the book. And I got a hold of some numbers. This is how they've done it. It's very simple. In 1993, Canada had 180,000 hospital beds. In 2003, we were down to 120,000 hospital beds. We went from 180,000 to 120,000 in 10 years, closing 1/3 of all the hospital beds in Canada. Now, I've spoken to people who work in healthcare, and of course they all say if you do that, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to have increasingly long waits for surgery, not because the doctors aren't there, but because there's no bed to put the person in, and so they can't operate. And the second thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have increasing chaos in your emergency rooms, because there's no bed in which to put the person who is now in the emergency room, so the next person can't get into the emergency room. And then the most important thing here is that nobody's ever seen these numbers. The media, which always tells us for years now that public health care doesn't work, public health care can't work, never tells us that we've closed 1/3 of all the beds in Canada, and that's why it's not working. They also don't say that, I think it's in 1975, hospitals took about 45% of the entire healthcare budget. Now it's down to about 30%. That loss of 15% costs our hospitals probably $17 billion a year. Much, 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 much more than enough to reopen all the beds. And what's the biggest cost increase? It's been in the cost of drugs and pharmaceuticals. So in other words, we Canadians are taking our money from our hospitals and giving it to the drug companies. And that's the real cause. Aside from the fact that, a lot of the medicines don't work anyways, and we keep out Chinese medicine, and we keep out so many other systems that can do a good job. But in terms of the two problems that they've made into the issue for privatizing healthcare, the surgical wait list and the emergency room problems, it's caused by the cutting of beds, which they've done deliberately, the politicians, and the media has kept secret. I've believed for a long time that protection of the planet and the environment is the #1 job that we have to do. And I think what all of us have to do is use less and have less. I think if we're not willing to do that, then it's not going to work. And I think most people are. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter what most people are, or what most people want, or what most people think, because the people of this country are no longer even in the game. We're not on the board. We don't have democracy. I'd like to talk for just a minute or two about democracy. The word democracy comes from the Greek, which I didn't know a few years ago. In fact, I realized as I started to write this little book on democracy a few years ago that I knew nothing about democracy. And I thought, isn't that funny that someone who's lived in a democracy all their lives knows nothing about democracy? And as I read on and worked on, I began to realize that no, it's not funny at all, it's deliberate. The word democracy comes from the Greek, demos, the people, and kratia, to rule. It means the people rule. And what I'd like to see more than anything else is for the government of British Columbia to start to work for the people of British Columbia, and the government of Canada to start to work for the people of Canada. And I think it's only when we have that, when the public again has a voice in what's going on, that we can begin to solve our problems. Because another thing that I've come to realize, and I think this is correct, although I'm not sure, is that our problems are their solutions. And by there, I mean the elite, the corporate elite that I think runs this country. Why do we have homelessness? It's not because we don't have the money. For $1 billion, we could build 6,000 units of low-cost housing at a cost of $160,000 each. The federal government just ran a surplus of $14 billion. The provincial government just ran a surplus of $4 billion. The money's there. We know what to do. You know, we don't have to build the projects that they like to tell us about. All we need is rental housing everywhere, because the market dictates that if there's more around, the prices will come down. I'm already out of time. We can build democracy. We can build democracy like you build a house. You just have to take certain steps, and each one of those steps will be a step in the right direction. I think we need proportional representation. We've already voted for it, 57% to 43%, but our ruler, Mr. Campbell, says that 57% isn't good enough. He got 46% to vote. I think I'd like to see the next leader, whoever that is, and the Green Party itself, go hard after these people. Say to Mr. Campbell, you're a dictator. You have no right to set a 60% limit. 50% plus one wins. It was enough to win in Quebec. It was enough to win in Meech Lake. 50% plus one wins. We also need parliamentary reform. Parliamentary reform means changing the way our parliaments and our governments work so that they begin to work for us. And the main step there is removing power from the party leaders, especially if that person becomes premier or prime minister. Because in Canada, more than in any other Western democracy, power gets concentrated into one set of hands. And that is the antithesis of democracy. And there's many other steps we can take within parliamentary reform to make our governments work for us. And we just have to do these things. Of course, the media never really reports on these kinds of issues because the media represents corporate Canada. It's owned by corporate Canada. It works for corporate Canada. It doesn't work for us. And why would they want democracy when they control everything now, or virtually everything? Moving right along. Just tap me on the shoulder when I'm done. The last thing I'd like to say, just some of the things I believe in. I believe we can get rid of homelessness and we can do it. It's a disgrace that we have it. I'm totally opposed to nuclear power. I support removing the forest companies from the land base of British Columbia. I support doing what people want. I think the job of the government should be to inform as best they can from all points of view, to inform the citizenry, to find out what the citizenry wants, and then to do that. And I think if we begin to have more democracy in British Columbia and Canada, we of the Green Party and we as individuals will get what we want, because I think we want what most people want, a clean, safe, decent future with good jobs for everybody, and etc. Thank you very much.
Jack Etkin, everyone. Thank you very much.
Whoa, wading through all four speeches. I was kind of hoping I'd be number one, but here I am.
You are.
I am at the end. And I would like to just acknowledge all of those of you who are here. It's a very exciting moment for the party, and it's an exciting moment for all of the candidates. And I really appreciate the fact that so many of you have taken time to come to this AGM. It's really an important event. I wanted to let all of my friends know that we're down to one sleep. So tomorrow we'll find out the results. My friends have been calling me each day saying, how many sleeps? And so we're down to one. I wanted to tell you this is my second speech. I woke up at 3 o'clock last night and I decided that the first speech, which was going to be about being elected and electable and capable of organizing the party and raising funds and being the most credible person to debate with Carol James and Gordon Campbell was something that you've probably read about in the material you got with your AGM package. And if you want a more expanded version of that, you can go to my table and get that. So I decided that instead of that, I was going to tell you a story from my week. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge the other candidates. All 5 leadership candidates believe in the Green Party of BC. And they've all invested a lot of time, energy, and money in support of the party and their candidacy. And I take my hat off to all of my competitors for their willingness to take on this campaign. Opening yourself up to public scrutiny is not always easy. And I think it's really important that these people have done that. And so I'd like you to give them all a round of applause. So now I want to get on to my story, because I think it illustrates why the Green Party needs to be at the table. On Tuesday, I attended the Capital Regional Housing Corporation board, on which I sit. This board is the guardian of rental properties in the Capital Regional District in Greater Victoria. And we have within our portfolio both below market rent tied to income properties as well as market housing properties. And the purpose of the board is that we preserve from redevelopment and privatization those rental properties, because there has been no new rental properties built in BC in the last 25 years. We also attempt to bring new rental housing on board. And so what happened at this meeting is not an unfamiliar thing. We found out that yet another project that was supposed to have some affordable housing component in it was not going to. So we've had Dockside Green that was supposed to have 44 units go down to nothing. A property in Sydney that was supposed to have 17 go down to 3. And a property in downtown Victoria that was supposed to have 30 to go to none. So in the end, there are no affordable units that are or will be built. And it reminded me when I sat there and listened to this about the suspended impotence we have at tackling the major problems that face our communities. And at the end of the meeting, I was talking about my discouragement to one of the other members of the board, and he happens to be an industry representative from the development community. And he shared with me the Latin phrase, illegatimus non carbonundrum, which is don't let the bastards get you down. But it's hard not to. The policies that we have in place in British Columbia are destroying our communities, they're killing our environment, and they're creating a false economy based on the selling off of wealth of future generations at fire sale prices in an orgy of greed. And so these things, to invest in those things that matter, that build and repair community, that steward and restore the environment, and that create reasonable wealth in a sustainably productive economy. We need to spend money where it's needed, and we need to cease subsidizing those things that are contrary to creating the society that we want. We need to stop the pinched, mean-spirited view of how BC should be. I have a personal disappointment as a politician in politicians who lack creativity and guts, in bureaucrats who fear change, and in citizens who disengage. The status quo is not an option. That the Green Party be at the table, not shouting from the margins. In Esquimalt, we would not have a pedestrian charter if I wasn't at the table. We would not be on the verge of passing a pesticide bylaw if I was not at the table. We would not be removing weeds. We would still be removing weeds with Roundup instead of steam if I wasn't at the table. We would not be thinking about urban agriculture. We would not be planning for community gardens, and we would not be talking about what it would take to become a sustainable community if I was not at the table. So the Green Party needs to be at the table. So how do we do that? We've always prided ourselves on policies that were ahead of the curve. But our policies need to be reviewed and updated and changed. Some of them are tired and some of them are out of date. So what we need is a bold, comprehensive plan that is both practical and visionary. We need to keep the other parties off guard. We need to challenge them to respond. And we need to make sure that they can't borrow our language.
Hear, hear.
I had the good fortune to have a conversation with Ken Malamud, who's going to speak to us, and I hope he speaks about this, who's the mayor of Whistler at the Union of BC Municipalities Conference. And he said, in casual conversation, I wish the Green Party would adopt the natural step. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. It allows us to have a long-term vision and a methodology for developing a new Green Book. It provides for concrete, pragmatic, early year objectives that we could run a campaign on. The good news is that companies like Interface Carpet, which was one of the most polluting corporations on the planet, was able to achieve 60% of their goals in the first 10 years of their 25-year plan. And they plan to go toward being a zero waste, zero emissions company, and finally to being a regenerative company, where they're actually going to mine landfills for carpet that can be recreated into new carpet. The great news is that within the party, I've come across people that have great expertise to help us in this task of creating a better policy. People with mining policy expertise and energy expertise, renewable run-of-river projects. People with seniors' health and housing issue expertise, and people with innovative ideas about public education and public health. We have within our party the resources that we need, and then we can call on experts if we don't. I would like to be the leader to take that vision that we developed together to the people of BC. I would like to translate the 16% polling support into votes. I would like to increase that support. And I would like a chance to win a seat or two or more in 2009. Thank you very much.